Good evening, dear students. Welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, UPSC Mains 2024, General Studies Paper 3 Analysis. So, we'll be continuing the analysis of GS Paper 3 of Mains 2024 examination. In the past lecture, we have discussed few questions which were asked in this paper. And in this session also we will be discussing few more questions which are very important, right? The first question that we are going to start this discussion is with the water or the irrigation system or the Indian irrigation system. The question is, what are the major challenges faced by the Indian irrigation system in recent times, and state measures taken by the government for efficient irrigation management? So understand that this question has two parts. So in the first part of the answer, so what you have to write, so you need to write the major challenges faced by the Indian irrigation system recent times, and in the second part of the answer you need to write the measures which are already taken by the government of India for the efficient irrigation management. Now I hope you knew some content about this particular question. So as I have already told you, in General Studies Paper 3, agriculture is a very important section, because a lot of questions are being asked from the agriculture section alone. So if you look at the types of Indian irrigation system, so it can be divided into two different types. So you can draw this particular diagram, or you can draw this flow chart in the examination. So if you look at the types of irrigation systems in India, so it is two types. So the first one is based on the source of water, and second one is based on the technique how water is actually delivered, right? So if you look at the based on the source of water, so canal irrigation, so 24% of the total irrigated land, so mostly northern part of India is irrigated through the canal irrigation. Second, well irrigation, because well irrigation is considered as one of the most popular methods, because 63% of the water, the net irrigated area is through the well irrigation. And after that, the tank irrigation. So when we talk about the tank irrigation, the southern states account for about 60% of the tank irrigation. And on the basis of technique how water is actually delivered, so it can also be further categorized into surface irrigation. So in the surface irrigation, water moves over and across the land by simple gravity flow. And secondly, micro irrigation, so it can be either drip irrigation or sprinkler irrigation. And sub irrigation, so artificially rising the water table to allow the soil to be moistened from below the plant's root zone. So these are different types of irrigation. Now the most efficient form of irrigation is micro irrigation. So with micro irrigation, what happens, there will be an efficient application of the water resources and even efficient usage of the water resources. So when we talk about the micro irrigation, we need to discuss about both drip irrigation as well as the sprinkler irrigation. Drip irrigation as well as sprinkler irrigation are two different types of irrigation that that comes under the micro irrigation techniques. So both drip irrigation and sprinkler irrigation results in water usage efficiency. So it results in water usage efficiency, and it also gives fillip to the precision farming as a technique, precision farming technique, right? So if you look at the Indian agriculture sector, so Indian agriculture is mainly rain fed, right? So Indian agriculture is mainly rain fed. There is poor irrigation infrastructure in India. Now apart from poor irrigation infrastructure in India, the other major problem is the unscientific management of the water resources. So this is another major problem, unscientific management of water resources. and in fact the water resources are extracted and they are just flooded all across the field. Now when water resources are extracted in an indiscriminate manner and they are just flooded the field, so it leads to the wastage of or exploitation, over exploitation of the water resources, exceeding the carrying capacity of the ability to recharge the groundwater table. And apart from that, it would also create large scale water crisis, right? So along with that, it also results in soil salinity. So ultimately the focus should be on the efficient usage of the existing water resources in a much more effective and efficient manner, because sustaining the water resources will help in ensuring food security for India's population. So food security is very important, right? So it also ensures water security as well, because a number of cities have been facing water stress, water crisis. So food security and water security can be ensured by efficient usage of existing water resources. And there are certain sustainable water management practices, so those practices should also be followed. Now in this context, what is the approach of this question? So you need to write some data with respect to the Indian irrigation system. So you can just mention such data in the introduction itself, and then discuss major challenges faced by the Indian irrigation system in recent times, because remember that this is the first part of the answer, and in the second part of the answer you need to mention the measures taken by the government for efficient irrigation management, and ultimately you need to conclude the answer by providing other suggestions or any other way forward in this answer. So in the introduction, what you have to write, so as I've told you that you can write some data about Indian irrigation system. So irrigation is extensively practiced in states like Punjab and Haryana, because those are the states where the agriculture is a predominant occupation of the people. So Punjab and Haryana are critically affected by the over exploitation of the groundwater, because Punjab and Haryana cultivates a huge amount of wheat and rice, right? So both Kharif and Rabi seasons. So they are also exploiting a huge amount of underground water resources, and in fact underground water tables have been depleted to 33% in these states in last 2 decades. And in fact Uttar Pradesh is one of the largest state with a huge population and a huge agricultural land. So it depends on surface irrigation that can lead to waterlogging and even soil salinity as well. So as I have already told you that when you flood the fields with the water, so water just logs over the fields, and over a period of time it would lead to the soil salinity of the soil, and making soil not suitable for the cultivation. However, there are some other challenges faced by India's irrigation system. So they included inefficient water usage. So inefficient water usage is one of the problem, and then inadequate infrastructure, low adoption of the modern techniques. So these are all the problems that the Indian agriculture sector has been facing, but you can briefly discuss them, and in the first part of the answer you can write the major challenges that the Indian irrigation system has been facing. So when we talk about the Indian irrigation system, I've already told you that the Indian irrigation system is predominantly rain fed. It is predominantly rain fed, and it depends on both the southwest monsoon, right? So it depends on southwest monsoon as well as the northeast monsoon. And apart from that, we have poor irrigation infrastructure. So poor irrigation infrastructure essentially means that we do not have the irrigation infrastructure independent of the rainfall. So if there is a scarce rainfall, if there is a failure of the monsoon, either southwest monsoon or northeast monsoon, so that would easily make farmers vulnerable, and that would also even lead to the crop failure as well. So when we have a robust and resilient irrigation infrastructure present across different states, farmers not necessarily depend on the rainfall, right? So they it is not necessary that they can rely on rainfall. So if we have the robust and resilient irrigation infrastructure. So however, since we have a poor irrigation infrastructure and Indian agriculture is primarily rain fed agriculture, so it very often leads to the crop failures, and crop failure also has some other consequences, such as the larger consequence would be the food security issue. And apart from food security issue, food inflation is another major problem, and the food inflation, farmers suicides is also another major problem, that so these are all the consequences of having the poor irrigation infrastructure. So in India, about nearly half of the net's own area comes under the rain fed lands, right? So it comes under the rain fed land, as I've already told you. So rain fed land essentially means that, imagine that there is a land, and so that particular land would come under the cultivation only if there is a rainfall. So that is what is known as the rain fed land. So even after achieving the ultimate irrigation potential, so 31% of the cultivable area will remain under the rain fed cultivation, right? So it will remain under the rain fed cultivation, and there has been a substantial disparity in rainfall. And in fact, in recent times, due to events like climate change, global warming, so there is either scanty rainfall or uneven rainfall, or even a flood like situation, or even droughts. So they become very, very common. So because of that particular reason, the monsoon rainfall has also become uneven in recent times. Okay, so because of that particular reason, there is a risk of dry spells at critical stages of crop, even during the good rainfall years. So all this is because of the increased reliance on rainfall, and also having a poor irrigation infrastructure. Now apart from that, we also have the poor irrigation efficiency. When we talk about the poor irrigation efficiency, so actually we have inadequate off-farm and on-farm infrastructure. So that essentially comes under the poor irrigation infrastructure. And even we have the off-farm and on-farm infrastructure, there's also a poor maintenance of the existing infrastructure often leads to the poor irrigation efficiency, right? For example, silt in the canals and reducing the water carrying capacity of those canals, rivers. So all those things are the major problems, right? So these are some of the challenges. And apart from that, there is a huge increase in the gap between created and utilized irrigation potential. So whatever irrigation potential that we have already created, so there is a huge gap which has been existing. For example, imagine that this particular amount of irrigation potential has been created, but this irrigation potential of a region is not fully utilized because of poor infrastructure, and that is another major problem when it comes to the irrigation infrastructure, right? So there is a large gap or a huge gap in terms of utilization of created potential, because at the end of the 11th 5-year plan, so if we talk about some data of the created irrigation potential by the end of the 11th 5-year plan, so the created irrigation potential by the end of the 11th 5-year plan was 87.86 million hectares. So it was against the total created potential of 113.53 million hectares. So there is a gap of 25.67 million hectares. So there's a huge gap which has been existing at this point of time. And apart from that, there are also frequent droughts and even the groundwater overuse as well. So I've told you that there were phenomenons like climate change, global warming, and these climate phenomena has resulted in increased frequency and intensity of drought like conditions, particularly due to the conditions like El Nino, right? So El Nino and the Indian Ocean dipole, particularly the negative Indian Ocean dipole. So remember that La Nina has a positive impact on the Indian monsoon, particularly the southwest monsoon, and even positive Indian Ocean dipole also have the positive impact on the southwest monsoon. But whenever whenever there is an El Nino year or even negative Indian Ocean dipole, so that would impact the Indian monsoon seasons as well, rainfall as well. But due to climate change and global warming in recent times, what has been happening? So El Ninos have become more and more common. The frequency of these El Ninos have been increasing in recent times. Okay, so frequency of occurring drought years significantly increased in India, and this period between 1950 to 1989 had a 10 drought years, while there have been 5 droughts in the last 16 years. And in fact, according to meteorologists, the frequency is set to increase between 2020 to 2049 as well. However, there are certain measures that the government has undertaken in order to ensure efficient irrigation management. So we'll try to understand what are those measures that the government has already undertaken. And if you look at the Indian irrigation system, particularly farmers lack awareness, and we have small and marginal farmers. Almost 80% of the farmers are small and marginal farmers and small land holdings, and it is not economically viable farmers shifting or transforming themselves towards the micro irrigation practices. So these are all the challenges which have been making the Indian irrigation system less water efficient. However, the government has undertaken certain measures to make sure that the water use efficiency is achieved. So firstly, the water management organizations were established, such as Central Water Commission, particularly for promoting integrated and sustainable development for management of water resources, and Central Groundwater Board for the management of groundwater resources were established. So what is the role and responsibility of these organizations? So these organizations look into the existing water resources. These organizations actively take part in the policy framework of the government when it comes to the conservation of the existing scarce water resources, and these organizations also put forward essential guidelines for the wise use of the water resources. So all these things are being done by the water management organizations which are established by the government. So when we talk about the water management organizations, there are two organizations which are very important. One is Central Water Commission and second is Central Groundwater Board. And secondly, the government has been providing subsidy to the farmers who are ready or who are interested to install micro irrigation system. Remember that micro irrigation system ensures efficient usage of the existing scarce water resources. However, the long-term goal is to encourage farmers to install a micro irrigation system to achieve water use efficiency. However, in order to mitigate the water scarcity and also reduce irrigation water demand, government has focused on increasing irrigation efficiency, right? So government has focused on increasing irrigation efficiency, and government has also been providing subsidy to the farmers who are interested to install micro irrigation system. However, Apart from that, the union government has launched a number of schemes. So these schemes particularly aimed at micro irrigation. So when we talk about the micro irrigation, so I have already told you that the drip irrigation, sprinkler irrigation, rain guns, so they use the existing water resources in a much more efficient and effective manner. So therefore, recognizing the importance of micro irrigation, central government has emphasized on micro irrigation in the year 1992 2006 centrally sponsored scheme for micro irrigation, and in 2010 national mission on micro irrigation, in 2014 national mission on sustainable agriculture. So all these missions are being launched, and these missions aimed at the sustainable utilization of the existing scarce water resources in an efficient and effective manner, so that could ensure both water security as well as food security and protect the country from the scarce or the scarcity of the water resources. And even Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana was also launched in the year 2016, right? So government has launched this Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana in the year 2015, integrating micro irrigation as an integral component. And in fact, this program includes creating infrastructure to bring water to farms and watershed management as well. And ultimately, in conclusion, so what you need to write, so irrigation infrastructure need to be further improved. So as I've told you that there is a poor irrigation infrastructure is existing in India, and therefore the irrigation infrastructure needs to be further improved to harvest rainwater. We need to harvest the rainwater, and the water management techniques are also very important here. Those water management techniques will help recharge the underground water tables as well. And works like Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, so they can also help undertake certain works which would help recharge the groundwater tables as well. And in fact, removal of silt in the irrigation canals, that would also enhances the water carrying capacity of these canals. Everything can be done. So increase storage capacity in order to utilize the runoff water. So generally water wastefully flows into the sea during the monsoon times. But if we have increased the storage capacity of the existing canals, existing reservoirs, lakes, dams, so what generally happens, we could reduce the waste flows into the sea, and that water can be utilized in a much more efficient and effective manner. And in fact, understand the potential of micro irrigation. Micro irrigation in fact has a lot of potential when it comes to the when it comes to enhancing the water usage efficiency. So therefore it could increase water usage efficiency by at least 90%. And in fact, micro irrigation and optimum crop plan will play a decisive role or a very important role in conservation of water resources and food security of the nation. And virtual water trade should be balanced instead of orienting it towards the export as well. In fact, farmers should be made aware of various government schemes to utilize their utmost potential, which is lacking in some states. So this is how you could conclude this answer. And in fact, water scarcity, water usage efficiency, water resources is one of the very important area. So you can expect at least one question every year on this particular topic. So therefore, make sure that you specially focus on this particular topic to score good marks. So next very important question is, elucidate the importance of buffer stocks for stabilizing agricultural prices in India. And second part of the answer is, what are the challenges associated with the storage of buffer stock? Now, before discussing this particular question, we need to understand what exactly is a buffer stock. Right? So we need to understand what is a buffer stock. So if you have some basic understanding of the Gender Studies Paper 3 syllabus, you could also understand what is buffer stock, because in the syllabus of General Studies paper 3, buffer stocks are mentioned as a topic, right? So if you can go through the syllabus, so you can also look at the buffer stocks. Now we all knew that the government provides MSP to certain crops. For example, around 23 different crops receive minimum support prices. We all knew about that. So however, when we talk about the MSP, why union government has been providing MSP to the farmers, so it is like a security for the farmers to help farmers get better income in case of a price drop or decline of prices in the market, right? So it is a security for the farmers. So however, now what the government will do by procuring food grains through MSP. For example, imagine that the government has announced MSP for both rice and wheat, a certain sum. Now in the market the prices declined. So prices declined and they come below the MSP rate announced by the government. Now farmers would sell the food grains, both rice and wheat, at MSP prices, and the government starts procuring the food grains from the farmer through an organization called Food Corporation of India. Now what the government will do with these food grains? Now government will store these food grains, right? So government will store these food grains, and the stock of these stored food grains is known as the buffer stock, right? So it is known as the buffer stock. So the stock of the stored food grains is known as the buffer stock. So I hope you have understood. Now why government has been building these buffer stocks? What is the advantage of this buffer stock? So government will distribute these food grains through the public distribution system and through the fair price shops to the people who are below poverty line, so thereby ensuring food security for the people. So we all knew that India is a country with the most number of poor people, and people also facing problems like hunger, malnutrition, hidden hunger, child stunting, child wasting, and even deaths associated with the hunger as well, that we have seen a few years back in Jharkhand, where a certain family was denied food grains because they don't have Aadhaar or the biometric details. So buffer stocks are very, very important to ensure food security for India's population. Now I hope you get some clarity on this. Now elucidate the importance of buffer stocks for stabilizing agricultural prices in India. What are the challenges associated with the storage of buffer stock in India? Right? Food Corporation of India procures food grains, and it has the responsibility to store the food grains, and those are known as the buffer stocks. But there are certain challenges when it comes to the storage of those food grains, and in the second part of the answer you need to discuss about that. So however, in the first part of the answer, how having a huge buffer stock would stabilize agricultural prices in India. So you could also understand this. So imagine that there is low agri productivity, right? So low agri productivity or production. So we take an example of rice. So low rice production in one particular financial year. So due to the lower production, what happens in the market? The price of rice will increase. Price of rice will increase substantially. But however, not everyone can actually afford the increased prices of rice. Not everyone can afford the increased prices of rice. So therefore, what the government will do? The government will start open selling these buffer stocks in the market, right? So government will start selling these buffer stocks in the market. So therefore that would help stabilize the prices of rice, So I hope you have understood this. This is very easy, it's not too complex. Okay, so even if you understand the basic market fundamentals, how market works, so you can understand this very very easily, right? So ultimately these buffer stocks will help the government stabilize the agricultural prices or also control the food inflation as well. So let's come and see, we'll discuss about this. So in economics and finance, buffer stocks also refer to a large quantities of a commodity. So this is a very specific definition of buffer stocks. Buffer stock means a large quantities of a commodity. For example, a crop. So with respect to buffer stocks in India, we could say that the agriculture produce which is procured by the Food Corporation of India, and even it can be fuel, it can be metal. So they are brought and they are stored when prices are low and sold when prices are high. So you can also do the same thing. So you if you are a trader, if you are a businessman, so you can purchase a higher quantity of goods at a lower prices when prices are low, and you can sell them when prices are very high. So this helps control the price and also quantity of the commodity in the economy. So this concept of buffer stock was first introduced during the fourth five-year plan in 1969 and 74. So the first part of the answer is importance of buffer stock for stabilizing agriculture prices in India. So how buffer stock will help stabilize agriculture prices in India? So particularly this will help ensure availability of food grains for the public through the public distribution system. So public distribution system will help distribute the food grains through the fair price shops, particularly to vulnerable sections during the adverse conditions such as droughts, floods and other crisis situations. And apart from that, these buffer stocks will also help stabilize the prices by releasing the grains during the shortage and absorbing the surplus in bumper harvest. So if you have understood the concept that I have explained in the beginning of this particular question, so you can understand all these points, right? So whenever the agriculture production is low, now what the government will do, government will release the food grains from the buffer stock to stabilize the prices. So however, whenever there is a bumper produce of the crop, of course the prices would be lower and it would be affordable. So government would procure the food grains and store those food grains, and it would be done by an organization called Food Corporation of India. And in fact, government also ensure fair prices to farmers through the minimum support price procurement. And government also provides immediate relief during natural disasters by supplying food grains without any delay. During COVID-19, supply of free ration is one of the example. And in fact, buffer stocks also help, also support the National Food Security Act by ensuring food supply to a large portion of India's population at subsidized rates. And in fact, the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs fixes the minimum buffer norms on a quarterly basis. The buffer stock figures are normally reviewed after every 5 years, right? So I hope you have understood this aspect. And in fact, Union government passed a legislation in the year 2013, so that is National Food Security Act. So buffer stocks support the National Food Security Act, thereby ensuring food supply to a large portion of India's population. And what are the challenges which are being associated with buffer stock? So when we talk about the challenges which are associated with the buffer stock, so India faces significant challenges in terms of adequate storage facilities that would lead to the wastage and spoilage of the food grains. And there is often an imbalance in the procurement of different grains, so that would lead to excess stocks of some and shortage of others. So this is another major challenge. Okay, so and most of these food grains are procured from only few states such as Haryana, Punjab and few northern Indian states. So there is a huge asymmetry, there is a huge imbalance which has been existing when we talk about the procurement of the food grains. Right, so India has also been facing significant challenges in terms of adequate storage facilities. So that leads to the wastage and even spoilage of the food grains as well. So maintaining large buffer stocks, so that would entails higher financial costs. So government also cannot procure food grains, and government also cannot manage those food grains for a significant period of time. So that would also leads to the losses to the Food Corporation of India, losses to the government as well, because it's not easy to transport these procured food grains and store those food grains and then distribute them. So it actually involves a huge financial cost on the part of the government. So however, the public distribution system often faces issues such as leakage and corruption, and even those things hinder the effective distribution of the buffer stocks in India. So this would be another major challenge, and therefore ensuring quality of stored food grains over extended periods is a significant challenge for the government. So however, so in this context, what needs to be done? You can mention a way forward in this answer. Right, so you can give suggestions, you can mention a way forward, so that would be more and more effective. So explore integrating technologies such as blockchain for transport and secure buffer stock management as well. So technology plays a very, very important role when it comes to the efficient procurement or having a proper supply chain, and even store those food grains and even supply those food grains whenever there is a need. Additionally, consider utilizing weather forecasting data from India or Indian Meteorological Department to preemptively adjust buffer stocks based on potential weather events impacting the production as well. So however, government is currently limited itself to procurement and even storage of these buffer stocks, particularly crops like rice, wheat, and few other pulses and oil seeds. However, so expanding this will include other essential food items like staple vegetables, skimmed milk powder, so that could help stabilize further prices. So however, a procurement of food grains from the farmers is a very good initiative, right? Because it ensures income security for the farmers, and it also protects the farmers from the volatile markets. For example, imagine that we have cropping seasons like Kharif and Rabi. So Kharif season, the harvesting time of Kharif crops would be around November, December and October months. So during that point of time, the markets are flooded with the agriculture produce. So higher supply of food grains would eventually lead to the lower prices. So thereby farmers will not be able to realize prices for their produce. So however, now government intervenes through MSP, and Food Corporation of India procures these food grains from the farmers by providing them MSP, and then store those food grains, and later those food grains are used to stabilize the agricultural prices and even supply food grains or distribute food grains to the public distribution system. So that ensures food security as well. Right, so this is a very important aspect of the government when it comes to ensuring income security for the farmers and food security for the poor people. And next, a very important question is about the water security. So remember that this is the second question about the water. First question that we have discussed about the water or irrigation management system in India. So remember that these questions are very, very important, that you can expect at least 1 or 2 questions on the water scarcity, water crisis, Indian irrigation system. So all those things are very, very important. So therefore, you need to have a special focus. You need to put a special focus on this particular topic, right? So that you can answer this question more confidently without any doubt. So the question is, world is facing an acute shortage of clean and safe fresh water. So there is an acute shortage of clean and safe fresh water, and this is a statement which is given in the question. And what are the alternative technologies which can actually solve this crisis, right? So what are the technologies which can help solve this crisis? And then briefly discuss any 3 such technologies, citing their key merits and demerits. So this question has 2 different parts. So initially you need to write some data on the water stress or the water crisis at the global level, and water crisis even in India as well. And after writing this, you need to write what are the alternative technologies which are available at present to solve this crisis of water scarcity. And then you need to briefly discuss any 3 such technologies which could solve this problem, and you could also mention the merits and demerits of those technologies. So in the introduction, you need to write some data on freshwater crisis in the introduction, and then you need to write what are the reasons for acute shortage of clean and safe fresh water, and then discuss alternative technologies that can solve this crisis, and briefly discuss any 3 technologies and its merits and demerits. And you can write the conclusion with an appropriate way forward as well. So this is how you need to write the approach of the question. And in the introduction, as I have told you, that you need to write some data on the fresh water crisis at the global level and even in India as well. So around 163 million Indians as of now, they lack access to safe drinking water. So they are lacking safe drinking water in India, and around 210 million Indians, around 210 million Indians lack access to the improved sanitation as well. And in fact, 21% of communicable diseases are linked to the unsafe water, and 500 children under the age of 5 die from diarrhea every day in India. Now, don't you think that when you write, diarrhea is also caused by the unsafe water, consumption of unsafe water. So don't you think that when you write such an impactful and attractive data in the introduction, it creates a very, very good impression in the mind of the examiner, and there is also a high probability that you will score very, very good marks in your answer, right? So only 0.5% of the water on earth is usable and available fresh water. So however, 25 countries as of now have been facing extremely high water stress, particularly countries in South Asia and also Africa. And in fact, these 25 countries which have been facing extremely high water stress, they used up almost all their available water supply or all their water resources, right? So what are the reasons for acute shortage of clean and safe fresh water? So we need to write about this. What are the reasons for acute shortage of clean and safe fresh water? Now one of the biggest drivers of water scarcity, so we need to understand, indiscriminate usage of the fresh water resources, and apart from that, exploitation of the existing water resources, this would be another major problem, because people lack awareness about the efficient water usage management techniques and unscientific irrigation systems in few countries, particularly in India. So unscientific irrigation system means that just flooding the fields with the water, right? So one of the biggest drivers of water scarcity is frequent drought-like conditions. So we all knew that drought is a natural phenomenon. But in recent times, drought has become a more common phenomenon because of the anthropogenic factors as well. right? So what is a drought? So drought means dry conditions and lack of precipitation. So that is a very generic and very simple definition of what constitutes a drought. So it is a lack of precipitation and dry conditions, whether it is rain, snow, or even sleet. So they occur in certain areas for a period of time or over a period of time. And in fact, we all knew that the global population has reached 8 billion. So global population has reached 8 billion. So that translates to a growing demand for water amid the water stress for the climate change. Right, so the population at the global level has been increasing, but the resources, particularly the water resources, have been declining, or we have a scarce water resources. Now, how we could sustain such a huge population with the limited water resources? And that is the main question here. And in fact, in recent times, urbanization and even exponential increase in the demand for the freshwater resources are the major driving factors behind the water shortages that we have been observing across the globe in general and India in particular. Right, so in fact, a lot of regions have been facing water stress, or they are also suffering with the precarious water supply as well. Now, in coming future, this condition would further exacerbate. People would not have adequate water to fulfill their daily necessities, right? So the world is going or moving towards the large scale water stress or water crisis, and this would be much more problematic. And in fact, water pollution already kills more people each year than the war and even all other forms of violence combined. So you can imagine the gravity of this problem of water scarcity, because it has killed all the people combined, whether it is war or in any form of violence. So in fact, as we have only less than 1% of the earth's fresh water which is accessible to us as of now, so human activity is actively threatening our own water resources, because people are indiscriminately using the existing water resources. There is lack of awareness when it comes to the water resources. Now, all these factors have been threatening our own water resources, and it has been creating water scarcity. In coming future, we could expect that there will be a large scale water scarcity that we are going to experience. And in fact, India also experiences uneven distribution of rainfall, so with majority of precipitation which has been occurring during the monsoon season. Right, so majority of the precipitation has been occurring in the monsoon season, June to September months. And in fact, there are several states like Kerala and Meghalaya, they also receive excessive rainfall, while arid regions Gujarat, Rajasthan and parts of Madhya Pradesh, so they see or they even face chronic water shortages in India. Now, next part of the question, so it is being asked to discuss alternative technologies, so which can actually solve this crisis, right? So what are those alternative technologies so that can help solve or address this crisis? For example, desalination, a technique, and in fact it is one of the promised method to increase freshwater supply capacity by removing the dissolved solutes from seawater and even brackish water. And then you need to talk about the rainwater harvesting. So rainwater harvesting is also an efficient or much more affordable way to reduce the use of fresh water from surface to groundwater resources. And then drip irrigation, a solution that can promote plant growth, increase yield and also reduces the soil salinity. And water reuse, it is a beneficial practice that can be used to address water crisis, particularly in agriculture. And the reverse osmosis is another technology that could also address the potential problem of freshwater crisis, and in fact it is a reliable, cost-effective method for purifying the existing water resources. So three technologies and the merits and demerits. For example, desalination. So when we talk about the merits of desalination technique, right? So water supply, desalination can increase water supply, especially in areas with the limited water resources, or even the areas where the drought is a more common phenomenon. Environmental protection, so desalination can help protect freshwater ecosystems by tapping into the seawater resources. And then we need to talk about certain demerits. So when we talk about these demerits, so desalination can be expensive to build and maintain plants. Water quality, desalination can have water quality concerns if chemicals are being used in this particular techniques. So this is how you need to present the answer, by writing both merits and demerits, and you can also write this in a tabular format, right? So you can mention merits on the one side and demerits on the other side. So this is how your presentation looks really good. And then another technology, which is reverse osmosis. Now, what are the advantages of reverse osmosis? So there are some advantages with this technique of reverse osmosis. It removes the contaminants, because very often this reverse osmosis technique remove around 99.99% of the contaminants like lead, chlorine, fluoride, arsenic and asbestos. And in fact, so the reverse osmosis technique also improves taste and smell of the water as well, right? Because the reverse osmosis removes strong smelling chemicals and other compounds that can make water taste and smell better. And what are the disadvantages of this reverse osmosis technique? So, our system can waste up to 3 to 20 times as much water as they produce. So a big wastage of water resources. And in fact, so it also very often removes the healthy minerals such as calcium, magnesium and potassium as well. So after that, we need to talk about the drip irrigation. So what are the merits and demerits of the drip irrigation? So drip irrigation systems are typically 90% or higher efficient, which is more efficient than the sprinkler irrigation systems. So apart from that, drip irrigation systems deliver water at low price, which reduces the risk of soil erosion, root exposure and also water runoff as well. Now, what are the demerits of this drip irrigation? So drip irrigation systems can cost 20% to 100% more than pivot irrigation systems. And even drip emitters can clog, which can reduce irrigation efficiency, uniformity, and clogged emitters can be difficult to detect and expensive to clean or replace. So these are the advantages and disadvantages of three important technologies. So by addressing these root causes of shortage and implementing sustainable water management practices and techniques, and even promoting conservation efforts such as the watershed management, so we could actually ensure a reliable supply of freshwater resources for current and future generations. That is the need of the hour, because the world is moving towards a large scale water stress or water crisis. Now in this context, it is essential for the government, organizations, civil society and larger public, so they come together, they work together to safeguard the existing precious water resources and protect the health and well-being of the communities across the worldwide. And if you want, you can also mention the sustainable development goals in the conclusion as well, right? So this is about the water scarcity, particularly the freshwater resources. And the next question, which is asked from the portion of science and technology, right? So this is asked from science and technology portion. The question is from the space. So question is about the asteroids. What are asteroids and how real the threat of them causing extinction of life? So how asteroid impact can actually cause extinction of life, and what strategies have been developed so far to prevent such a large scale catastrophe, right? So these are three different parts that we need to address in this particular answer, right? So you can also go through this image: what constitutes a comet, what constitutes a meteoroid, what constitute meteorite, asteroid and meteor. Okay, so in fact, what is an asteroid? Asteroid is made up of a metallic or non-metallic rocks. So this is how asteroid actually looks like. It is a metallic or non-metallic rock that orbits the sun, right? So it actually orbits the sun, and they can range in a size from a few centimeters wide to almost thousands of kilometers across, right? So that is known as the asteroid. Now what should be the approach of this particular question? Now you have to just introduce the answer with mentioning what are these asteroids, and then discuss the threat of extinction on the planet due to asteroid strike. Discuss is it real, and then mention some strategies which are recently being adopted to or developed to prevent such a large scale catastrophe, right? So you can also stress on the global collaboration to protect the planet from the impact of these asteroids in the conclusion. Now what are the asteroids? So asteroids are very often small rocky objects. So these asteroids orbit the sun, right? So they are small and rocky objects, but they orbit the sun. And in fact, these asteroids, they orbit the sun like any other planet, like how Earth orbits around the sun. These asteroids also orbit around the sun. However, the prime difference is that these asteroids are much more smaller than the planets. And in fact, there are lots of asteroids, and in fact there is an asteroid belt which is located between Mars and Jupiter, right? So the asteroid belt is located between the Mars and Jupiter, and there are a lot of asteroids in our solar system, and most of these asteroids, most of them live in the asteroid belt, right? So as I've already told you, this asteroid belt is the region between the orbits of both Mars and Jupiter. So we all knew that after Earth we have Mars, and after Mars we have Jupiter. Now the next part of the question, so we have introduced what are these asteroids. The next part of the answer, the threat of extinction on the planet due to asteroid strike. Discuss, is it real? So can asteroids really have the capacity to destroy this planet, or asteroid strike impact can really lead to the extinction of all the species or all the life on this planet? So that is the major question that we need to discuss. So asteroids as small as 50 meters diameter can cause regional destruction, right? So they can actually cause a huge regional destruction, because asteroids over 1 kilometer in size, they can cause global climate effects, right? So whenever any asteroid hits the planet, so it could create a global catastrophe. And apart from that, the impact speed of a long period comet is likely to be much greater than that of a near Earth asteroid, making it more and more destructive as well. And in fact, the average warning time for near Earth or asteroids is likely to be about 1,000 years or more, and this is the main advantage. So we could come up with appropriate plans to actually deal with those asteroids. And in fact, historically there's an evidence that asteroid impact actually caused the extinction of dinosaurs 66 million years ago on this planet. So planet Earth was previously hit by an asteroid, and that led to the extinction of the species called dinosaurs. So dinosaurs were the dominant species, right? So they were top in the total food chain. They're top predator in the food chain, but they went extinct because of the asteroid strike. So however, the threat of asteroid strike causing extinction on the planet Earth is real, right? So there's no doubt about that. Asteroids hitting the planet Earth and leading to the extinction of the life on this planet is real, but it's rare, right? So because the probability of hitting a giant asteroid or giant asteroid impact on this planet over the next billion years is between 0.03 to 0.3. However, so there have been significant advances in technologies so that could detect and even deflect the asteroids, and international cooperation is important or crucial averting the future threats of asteroids. Now, what strategies are required? So what strategies have been developed to prevent such large-scale catastrophes as of now? So there are a number of such strategies that the space organizations of different countries and scientists have been exploring to protect life on this planet, particularly from an asteroid impact. So one such strategy is a gravity tractor. So under this particular strategy, a spacecraft's gravity can be used to slowly change the asteroid's trajectory. So asteroid's trajectory, which is swiftly moving towards the planet, so the trajectory of the asteroid can be changed using a spacecraft's gravity. However, this technique is most effective when it comes to the smaller asteroids with the size less than 500 meters in diameter. However, so this is not effective when it comes to the asteroids which are more than 500 meters. So the next technique was iron beam shepherd technique. Right, so under this iron beam shepherd technique, using ion engines exhaust to push an asteroid, and this technique is more efficient than a gravity tractor for asteroids under 2 kilometers of wide. So there are asteroids in the solar system and in the asteroid belt, so their size is massive, like 2 kilometers, more than 2 kilometers, and they could actually pose a significant harm to this planet. Right, so sending a spacecraft to slam into the asteroid, that would be another major problem. And nuclear detonation, particularly firing a nuclear laden spacecraft at an asteroid, so this could be the best option for the planetary emergency. Non-destructive projectile, so impacting asteroid with non-destructive projectile and even high power laser, so ablating asteroid surface with high power laser are some of the strategies which have been developed to protect the planet from the impact of the asteroids. So there was an organization which was established to ensure global collaboration to deal with the asteroids, that is International Asteroid Warning Network. Right, so it facilitates the communication between different space agencies across the world and astronomers to quickly share information about the potential asteroid threats. And secondly, NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office, so it manages NASA's mission to find, track and even understand the asteroids, comets that could impact the planet Earth as well. So this is how you could actually conclude this answer, and that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. So if you like our work, please subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. So thank you.